Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. Coming up, diabetics are costing the NHS money for not managing their condition properly. We meet a group who are educating people. We meet Mia, Humberside Police's drug sniffer dog. We take a look at a service that helps people with problems on Grimsby's East Marsh. We ask you about financial pressures you face to keep a roof over your head. And we meet one man who has found a career after being homeless for more than a year. Welcome to Estuary News. I'm Emma Lingard, but first here's the news headlines.
Residents in Scarthrow have had enough of people parking outside their homes because they can't find a hospital parking space. That's according to North East Lincolnshire Councillor Ian Lindley. He says drivers are parking on streets close to the rear entrance of Grimsby Hospital.
Over the past few years, the hospital site has developed, and I think there's fewer and fewer spaces there now. So at peak times, parking is quite hard to come by. So patients may turn up and they're keen not to make sure that they don't miss their appointments. So if the car parks are full, they'll come off the site and look for alternative parking. And this is clearly one of the closest sites to the hospital.
It's thought residential parking permits could be brought in to discourage motorists. North East Lincolnshire Council is urging businesses to welcome breastfeeding mothers and their children. They've launched a scheme which hopes to ensure mums when out and about can always find a comfortable and welcoming environment to breastfeed. It's hoped cafes, restaurants and retail shops will get on board. Elsewhere, a Scunthorpe mother wants to take her fight for improved disabled facilities to the top. Lorna Fillingham is calling on the government for all disabled toilets in the town to include hoists and adult changing facilities, saying average disabled toilets often prove inadequate for many carers. Well, North Lincolnshire Council has agreed to put it to a public consultation before the end of the year.
Yes, I'm hoping to make it UK-wide. I have got an online petition on change.org, ensure equality of access to disabled toilets for all. That has got 1,600 signatures currently on it, and I'm getting more. And I have written to government. My local MPs have written to government ministers, and we're hoping to hear from them, because I'm hoping that the government will take the lead on this.
People will be able to catch a rare glimpse of the Alexander von Humboldt II tomorrow as the ship returns from a tall ships sailing race which concluded in Amsterdam. It'll be moored off Spurn Point from 12 in the afternoon, arriving in Grimsby's Royal Dock between 1:20 and 2 p.m. After 24 hours, it'll return to its home port of Brimhaven, Grimsby's twin town, with its first ever female captain and 70-strong crew. Until next time, goodbye.
As obesity rates rise and the amount of physical activities people do drops, the number of people with diabetes is rising. Type 2 diabetes is caused by an unhealthy lifestyle and can lead to devastating consequences, including blindness and amputation. The charity Diabetes UK this week claimed that £10 billion of NHS money was being used to treat health issues associated with people not properly managing their condition, and called for an increase in groups aimed at educating people about the disease. Well, one such group already exists in Grimsby, and we went along to find out more.
Diabetes is a condition affecting increasing numbers of people. Some have the incurable type 1 diabetes, but lifestyle habits are leading to an increase in type 2 cases, which is manageable. Groups like the Diabetes Support Group in North East Lincolnshire aim to help people manage their condition.
I've been in this role since January, and my role is about upskilling really GPs, practice nurses, community nurses. But we did a diabetes review, and a lot of the patients that were asked about the diabetes care actually wanted some support group. So that's why Dave has sorted out the diabetes support group for North East Lincolnshire. And it basically runs every third Monday in the month. And I do sort of an hour about sort of the different sort of aspects of diabetes, and then it's more sort of like a social side after that.
And groups like this may become vital. The number of cases of diabetes has increased 59.8% in the last decade, with only 6 in 10 people receiving the proper care checks as recommended by the National Institute for Clinical Excellence, including things like blood glucose and kidney tests. It's estimated that diabetes costs the NHS £10 billion a year, with the vast majority of complications being avoidable. That's why groups like this will become increasingly prevalent.
And we've just done a session, obviously, on the complications of diabetes, and that actually is what costs the most for the NHS, not actually the medications to treat the diabetes. But obviously in Julie's case, if we can prevent people or delay people from getting diabetes, then it's going to help with the NHS and cut the costs.
So they think there's 1 in 3 people who have diabetes and don't even know about it. So we're carrying out risk assessments, and people who are high risk of developing diabetes, we're recommending they go to their GP. But then if they found that they're not diabetic but actually they're still at risk, we invite them along to our programme of education sessions. So again, it's just getting the word out there.
With the side effects being as serious as blindness and amputations, groups like this one in Grimsby agree that more education and lifestyle management could save the health service millions of pounds.
Certainly very important. I mean, when patients are actually diagnosed with diabetes, they are offered the chance to come to a structured education programme called Desmond, and we cover sort of what diabetes is, how they can control it, the complications of diabetes and how they can prevent it. And hopefully that way they can take on sort of the responsibility of their own diabetes and self-manage it rather than relying on doctors and nurses.
You're watching Estuary News. Coming up later, we take a look at a service that helps people with problems on Grimsby's East Marsh. And we meet one man who has found a career after being homeless for more than a year. And we'll bring you all the latest local sports news. Over the summer, Humberside Police have been helping young people stay safe by engaging them in activities. One activity involved the drug sniffer dogs, who were used to help educate young people about the dangers of drugs. Dan Kemp went along to meet Mia and Bobby.
PD Mia reporting for duty with her handler PC Bentley. They've been working together for a year since Mia passed through South Yorkshire Police's dog training complex. The two work together to sniff out drugs, and here's how our training works.
We set up a scenario where we have people in a room and we'll hide a synthetic drug among them people, and we'll bring the dog along. The dog has never met the people before, and then we literally set the dog tasking and get her to search through the crowd or the room or whatever it is to find the drug. When she finds the drug that's been placed, I don't know necessarily who's got it or where it's been placed. I don't need to, because I'm not looking for it. The dog will search for it, find it. When she finds the source, she'll freeze, and then the reward then generally would be she would get a ball. In a training exercise, that's how we would do it. In a live environment, we don't necessarily reward them each time, because it could be that the drugs are not on the people anymore, that they've taken them, but the residue smell is still on them.
Just like her handler, Mia works day and night shifts and can be challenged in many different ways during her time on the beat.
We do pubs, clubs, nightclubs, shipping terminals, the ferry terminals, do airports. She's capable of working anywhere where there's crowds of people. If there's a queue to get in somewhere, that's a classic training area for us. Every live operation she does is a training job as far as she's concerned. She thinks she's going to win and get the ball. She doesn't necessarily. Sometimes we have negative searches deliberately built in just to prove that she's working. And then we'll set a drug into the scenario to test it, and we put different drugs in as well. We have half a dozen different ones that we can use, and the idea with that is it builds up her memory bank, it keeps her sharp, and it keeps her operationally viable.
The demonstration comes as part of the Force's Stay Safe Over Summer campaign to encourage young people to engage in positive activities and avoid drugs over the summer break. Mia and a second dog, Bobby the Spaniel, were funded by NHS Hull CCG and visit schools and community events to deter young people from using drugs.
Still to come, we find out where the Mayor of Brigg is going next week. And we meet one man who has found a career after being homeless for more than a year. Like all areas, the East Marsh has its fair share of problems, and the Open Door Centre has been at the heart of helping to sort those issues out. Most are often caused by deprivation or drug and alcohol problems. The charity says the negative press the area constantly receives makes people more determined to change their lives, as we went to find out.
It's a charity at the heart of the community. The Open Door Centre has been at the heart of Grimsby's East Marsh for the last 8 years, but what exactly does it do?
We're a health and social care, which is a nurse-led service for those that work and live within the East Marsh. We're here to set up to work with the most vulnerable people. So we have different people from different ways of life, different countries, and those that are just going through hardship during the year, just like anybody else. Sometimes they need that extra support, so we've got able to offer that here.
The East Marsh is known as a deprived area, being named as the worst place to live in the country. The Open Door Centre realised this and aimed to help the residents of the area.
East Marsh is one of the worst places to live within the UK. That's for deprivation, teenage pregnancy, unemployment and housing. So we've set up in this area to try and give people that worth of living in the East Marsh and give them options and education, training to try and bring their aspirations higher and to make the neighbourhood a better place.
Some of the important work the centre does involves other charities, the health service and the local authorities. The centre helps people who are particularly deprived or have alcohol and drug problems, and Robert says that this multi-agency approach benefits everyone in the long run.
There's lots of organisations out there that we work along with. There's 22 different organisations that work outside this building, so it's a good multi-agency working to try and make people understand that when they come into the building they can access a wide range of services. That way it's a lot quicker, the process is a lot quicker to get through the systems, and hopefully when those people have got the drive to do something, everything's all under one roof and we're not missing any of these people and they're not falling through the gaps.
Running the centre, Rob sees all manner of people from the East Marsh and is at the centre of the local community. He's aware of the problems the area has and its negative press. The centre believes that helping people is the key to changing this image and that the people of the East Marsh are willing to take the offer of help.
I've worked in this area for 10 years now and it's one of the most diverse areas that I've worked in. People have a great sense of community in this area and I've seen over the last 10 years that this area get a lot better, the housing standards getting better, education needs, jobs. It's really coming sort of through the other way now and I think the reputation is a lot worse than actually it has been over the years. And we're seeing it on a day-to-day basis. People are changing their lives and making their lives a lot better, whether it's the youngsters going away to university or staying doing apprenticeships and placements, volunteering. There is a real drive in this area for people to try and do better within their lifestyle.
Will a rise in interest rates be an added pressure when it comes to people being able to pay their mortgage and keep a roof over their heads? That's the question we've been asking people in Grimsby's town centre following the announcement that they are expected to rise in February 2016.
I don't think Grimsby needs to be any more difficult than what it already is, like financially, so I don't agree with that.
That's worrying me because I've got my own house and I'm still paying for that, and if it goes up too much, what to do next, I don't know.
It's going to be really difficult because everybody, not just us, we're still paying a mortgage and we thought we'd be mortgage free by now anyway, and we're not, so we're just working to pay our mortgage off, but everybody else is going to be in the same situation, and food's gone up, everything's gone up. You know, it's just squeezing everybody tighter and tighter and tighter.
Interest rates have got to go up eventually, so it'll happen. Be all right for the savers though, won't it?
You've got to pay it, so
yeah.
There's only the same amount of money, so you have to cut somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that, they've had it quite reasonable prices for 5-6 years now, so I think just a little bit increase. They get used to being at a lower rate, and maybe they overstretch a bit, don't they?
Well, for me, I wouldn't be able to get a mortgage to save my life, so for me that's a big downside. It's one thing I've always wanted, a mortgage, and like I say, interest rates, the deposits for it, and that's just not happening.
When we started buying houses in the 80s, obviously you got very high rates, so at the moment it doesn't matter really if they go up too much because they're never going to hit what they were in the 80s.
Hopefully.
But hopefully, I don't need to. But again, it's only going to affect the small people. The big people have got the money to pay the mortgages regardless.
I think if it goes up, if it shoots suddenly up to 2% or whatever, it's going to be a bit of a shock, and it's going to be quite a struggle because there's quite a difference obviously in the rates. So I think it might be quite a struggle for some people.
Now it's time for the Mayor's Going Where, and this week we find out where the Mayor of Brigg is going.
I'm James Trupany, Brigtown Mayor, and next weekend I'll be at the Summer Fair in Brigg, which is at St John Althorpe School on the lower school site, where there'll be bands and lots of fun stuff, and it's organised by Brigg Lions. I'll be playing in 3 bands: Brigg Music Club House Band, Sheriff Lone Star and the Deputies of Heartbreak, and a band with our former MP Ian Crawsey. The weekend after that, on the 5th of September, will be Brigstock in Brigg, a major acoustic event which is supported by Brigtown Business Partnership. After that, I've got a bit of a slow time because it's summer recess, so we kind of get on with stuff. And we'll be back at meetings in September.
And with me now to talk about what's been happening is Dan Kemp. Dan.
Good evening.
Stories today then. You're going to kick off with a big one, aren't you?
Yes, there's been a petition handed in to try and stop the intensive chicken farm at Whiten from being built.
Okay, whereabouts is Whiten? For
Whiten.
those of us on the south bank who might not know.
Yeah, it's halfway between Skirler and Heddon, just east of Hull.
Okay.
So we're talking about 20 minutes from the town centre, I would have said.
Okay, and this is a new development that's been put in, isn't it?
Yes,
How many
it is.
chickens?
It's a proposed farm to hold up to 322,000 chicks. That
And
sounds like a
that's
serious number.
intensive farming. It's a broiler unit.
In 6 broiler houses.
Okay, okay, right. So that's a story to keep around. Going to move you on quickly today because we haven't got time.
That's a good thing. This is a residents fearing for plans over 1,600 new homes in Brantholme and Kingswood.
Okay.
In Hull, which is off Warne Road by Broadacre Primary School. And that's part of the Hull Citywide Partnership. It's another case of petitions here of people being unhappy about this development.
Okay.
300 signatures have so far been handed in against the plans.
And is that just on the outskirts?
Yes, this is Brantholme and Kingswood, and the fears here that it's a wildlife area that needs protecting, and people are concerned that that's going to be affected by their new development.
Losing green bait. Well, that's all we've got time for, Dan. I'm sure we'll look into those. Thank you very much. There are many different reasons people can become homeless, and many different charities that are helping people get their lives back on track. We brought you the story of the Hull branch Emmaus, which is expanding to accommodate more people. And now we take a look at the Crossings charity, which helps homeless people get back on their feet, and how it's helped one man turn his life around.
Homelessness is something that can happen to anyone at any time for any reason. Luckily, there is support out there for people who need it, and it comes from centres like the Crossings.
The Crossings is a service for single homeless people who are age 18 plus. We're an education, training and employment centre, as well as what you might call a traditional sort of homeless hostel. So we work with our partners in the local authority and other partners in terms of helping end rough sleeping and moving people into independent living. But part of the approach in the facilities we have is around offering training, education and employment opportunities. There's a saying that everyone's only so many steps away from becoming homeless, but we certainly feel like the Crossings that if people can find employment opportunities and gain employment, that moves people further away from ever having to come back into the homelessness sector.
Gary ended up homeless after the breakdown of a relationship. After some hard times, including sleeping in a park, he found help at the Crossings.
Basically, my relationship kind of fizzled out. I found myself homeless. Basically, it was a choice of accommodation or food. So the money that I had at the time basically paid for B&Bs. My money ran out, so I ended up sleeping in East Park for a night. And then obviously things went sour, which obviously was in the paper about what I did. Basically when I was released from the hospital, I had nowhere to go. It was my mum and a friend who were calling here. So I'd recently been in here, but there wasn't any space at the time. And Nita, who works here, got me in, and yeah, and just went from there.
Thanks to the help of the people at the Crossings, Gary has turned his life around. He's now head chef at the cafe on site and is now helping other people who are in a similar situation to the one he was in.
Good, excellent. I enjoy what I do. I've got a big understanding for the homeless now, obviously from being myself and then obviously seeing people that I train in here. It's just good. I just said in the paper interview, I owe a lot to this place to basically giving me the opportunity, and we tell the shore as well now for giving me the opportunity to do what I do, and yeah, I enjoy it.
The message from the crossings is that while homelessness is rising, its services are there for anyone who needs them.
So it can happen to anyone. The services are needed and very much required and continue to be required. Homelessness, I think Hull does its best to do its best with homelessness, but if you think nationally about homelessness, it's on the rise nationally, and Hull is the same, really.
Now it's time for the sports news.
We will start with the weekend results then. Steve Bruce says his side has to perform far better than they did against Charlton Athletic after admitting that, on the whole, the Tigers were awful in their 2-1 defeat at the Valley. It did look as though Bruce's men would return home with a point after Abel Hernandez poached a goal in the final minute, but a Charlton winner 8 minutes into added time left the Tigers deflated. Elsewhere, Grimsby Town bounced back to claim a point over Torquay, earning a 2-2 draw, and Scunthorpe United faced Millwall, concluding in a 0-0 draw. Rugby now, and Leeds Rhinos maintained their 4-point lead at the top of Super League with a 36-22 victory at Hull FC. The Challenge Cup finalists Hull KR pulled off a good win at Widnes to keep up their 100% start to the qualifiers, ending at 12-8. And Jessica Ennis-Hill has completed her golden comeback at the World Championships, winning her first major championship since London 2012, just 13 months after the birth of her son. It was still unclear just 4 weeks ago whether the Olympic heptathlon champion would compete in Beijing, and would only returned to action in May following the arrival of Reggie last summer. If you have any stories, please contact me on 01472 315561. Until next time. Goodbye.
That's it for tonight. If you've a news story, then visit our Facebook or Twitter pages. Details are on the screen. Or email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472 315 553. Until next time, goodbye.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. A dry start with sunny spells on Tuesday. Cloud will increase later in the afternoon, perhaps with some patchy rain arriving during the evening. Light or moderate winds, freshening later with a maximum temperature of 19 degrees. Wednesday, further occasional heavy rain or showers with a few sunny spells.